What's up guys, Deadbird here. In today's episode, I'm going to teach you guys how to make a quest system. Now, obviously I can't go and get everything done within one episode, but I'll just try to teach you guys how to do the basic setup, and then in future episodes I will teach you guys how to do more in-depth, advanced stuff, like, let's say, whenever you complete something, like kill an enemy, a pop-up will appear saying 1 out of X enemies have been killed. And then also having being able to turn in your quests and whatnot, but for now it's going to be automatic. And with that being said, let's get started. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a folder. We're going to call this the quest scripts, and then we're going to create a new script and call it quest base. Alright, so let's open this up and talk about what will be in this quest-based class and how we're going to structure this. Alright, so super quick, I'm just going to talk about the structure of the quest system, and basically we're going to be creating scriptable objects. So we're going to be creating a scriptable object quest, just like we did with the dialogue system, the inventory system, and we're going to create a base quest class. And in this class, we're going to have everything that every quest will have. So we need to think about what will every quest in the game have. And in this example, we're going to have a name for the quest, a description, and we're going to have a amount of things we need to do, and then we have the amount of things that we currently have. So I'll show you what that looks like later. And then we're going to then have more scripts that derive from this base class, and this will get into like the specifics, like, okay, what is it that we're doing exactly? Are we killing things? Are we collecting things? Maybe we're talking to things, and that we're going to handle like the specific logic in these classes that derive from the base class. So that being said, let's go back to our game and let's open up our base quest base here. Alright, so we have our quest base class here, and we're going to just delete this because we don't want that, and we're going to be deriving from scriptable object, and we're going to be putting in those things that I said that all quests will have. So let's start with the quest name. We're just going to call this quest name, and then we're going to create another string and call this quest description, and then we're going to have 2 more variables, well actually 3 more, public int, and this is going to be our current amount, and we're going to get and set, and then we're going to create another one and call this one required amount and get and set. So we're just creating a quick property out of them because we don't want these to show up in the inspector. We're going to want to set them through a different way, and we're going to want one more variable and call this a boolean, and it's going to check if our quest is completed, get and set, and we'll probably change this up, but for now this will do. And the next part is we need to now go and create a new quest class, and we'll call this quest kill, and this basically indicates that this quest is going to be all about killing creatures. Alright, so we have our kill quest here, and we're going to just get rid of this as usual, and we're going to be creating a, well, first let's derive this from the quest base real quick, and then we're going to be creating an asset menu out of this. So if you haven't seen my tool creation video, well, you don't have to, but just saying, if you have seen that video, you can use the tool creation script that I gave you guys, and instead of creating asset menu, you can just use the window. But because I don't want to go through that hassle, I don't want to assume that everyone has seen it, so I'm just going to do it the old-fashioned way and be creating an asset menu, and just say file name, and we're going to call this a quest. Let's just call it a kill quest. So this will be like the default name, doesn't really matter. And then we're going to do a menu name, and then we're going to do quest / kill quest. Alright, and so now if I go over and I'm going to just let's see, where should I put this? I'm going to create a new folder and call this quests, and open it up. I'm going to create, go over to my quests, quests, this is like my kill quest. Say enter, and here we have our quest name and quest description. And it doesn't look too fancy. We can make this quest description look a little bit better. So let's go back over to our quest base class here, and right above here we're going to do a text area, and we'll just make this like 310, maybe bigger. Let's just do 5. Alright, so let's go back over here, and this will just expand it once it compiles. And there we go, we can just write up our quest description here. And with that, let's move on to the next part. Alright, so before we can actually start creating kill quests, first we need to create enemies, because if we don't have enemies, what are we going to kill with? So we have an enemy here, but he doesn't really have any name to him. He's just this like test enemy, so how do we know what to kill exactly? So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our enemy scripts, and we're going to create a new script. I'm going to call this enemy profile, and this will just let us know what exactly we're killing. So in our enemy profile, all this is going to be a scriptable object. If you notice, I like my scriptable objects. And then we're going to do the same thing with our quest, where we create a asset menu. So we're going to do create asset menu, file name, and we'll call this enemy name, and then we're going to do menu name is equal to enemy profile. So in this thing, we're not going to have any information or variables here. We'll do that probably for another video. For now, this is all we're going to do is just create a scriptable object out of this. And then with our characters, we're going to create a similar one, or with our character folder, we're going to create a similar one and call this enemies. So just like a character, we have enemies, and then we're going to create a enemy profile, and we'll just call this one slime. Alright, so we have our slime here, but the slime still doesn't know if it's a slime or not. So we're going to go to our base enemy class. So let's go over to our scripts, enemy scripts, base enemy. And we're going to just put this over here and create a public, and we'll call this, well, first we do the enemy profile. So public enemy profile, and let's call this enemy profile. And then we can see that we have a new enemy profile here. And if you just click on this little circle, it's gonna bring up all the enemy profiles that are in our the game. We have our slime here, so we're gonna select our slime. Alright, so our base enemy knows that it's a slime now. Then we can just hit apply, and basically we just updated the prefab, so anytime that we use this enemy, it'll know that it's a slime. So we'll just call this slime now. Let's update it again. So I can go to my prefabs folder and I have my test enemy, but if I drag it in here, actually I didn't update. Let me just manually update. I don't know why I didn't update. So let's call it slime. So anytime I drag in a new slime, it's gonna know that it's a slime because of the enemy profile here. And the reason why we need to know that this is a slime, because in our kill quest, we're gonna be designating what type of enemy we're gonna kill, and then we can just drag in the slime, and then we just need to then kill the slime, and then update the quest. So the second part is that we need to know what we kill when we kill it, and I'll show you guys how to do that. Alright, so here in our base enemy class, we need to know whenever an enemy dies and what enemy dies. So an easy way to do this is by using a delegate. So let's make a public delegate void and call this on enemy callback. Well, let's call this on enemy death callback. And we're basically just going to create a on enemy death callback, and let's call this on enemy death callback again. And then here we have our delegate, and we're going to pass through a enemy profile. Let's call this enemy profile. And then last but not least, we're going to say if on enemy callback is not equal to null, then we're going to invoke it on callback invoke. And it's gonna want to know what enemy is dying, because we're passing through an enemy profile, so it wants an enemy profile. And we can just simply put the enemy profile here and put it into here. So whenever we invoke this, we're passing through the enemy profile that's attached to this class. Alright, so now we can use that for our kill quest. So we're going to put this in here, and I'll show you guys how to do that. Alright, so before we implement the enemy being slain, I guess I should say, before we implement the delegate, we need to first build this out a little bit more. So all we have is a quest description and a quest name. That's not enough for a kill quest. So what do we need? Let's create a class within this class, and we'll call this objectives. And we're going to have a objective in here, and we're going to have a enemy profile, so we'll just call this enemy, and then we're going to need an amount, and this will be integer, and we'll call this required amount. And then we're going to do system.serializable, and then we're going to create a public objective, objectives, and then we're making an array, and just call this objectives. Alright, so let's go look at our quest. So go over to your quest, and you should have a test quest. If you don't, just create one real quick. So go to create kill quest, and now you will see we have a little drop down menu, and in this drop down menu we have objectives, and if we've hit like 2, so this determines how many objectives are going to be in this quest. We pull this down, and so now you see we'll have an enemy. So it'll want an enemy profile, so you just click this little circle here, and just like before, it'll give you a list of the enemies, and you can select which one you want, and all we have is a slime. So we'll select our slime, and then we're going to need a required amount to kill, and we'll just say 8, but it's not going to do anything for now. Because we only have one enemy, we'll just do 1 for now. And so this is what it's going to look like. So we're going to just put the name, maybe like kill the slimes. Could you kill 8 slimes for me? And so let's go back over to our kill quest, and let's see how we can actually make it so that we need to kill these slimes. So I forgot to explain something real quick. If you go back to our quest base, the reason why this integer, the current amount and the required amount, is an array is because you're usually going to have multiple things to do in a quest. So if you only wanted to kill like 8 slimes for this quest, then you wouldn't need it. But if your game is going to be more complex, and let's say not only to kill 8 slimes, but you also need to collect 3 pieces of apples or something like that, then you're going to need more than one current amount, required amount. You need an array because you need to track multiple objectives. So that's why this is an array, and I'll show you how to set this in your other classes. Alright, so real quick, I'm going to call this, instead of enemy, it's a little bit ambiguous, I'll call this required enemy, just so that we know what it is. And then we're going to need 2 methods here. The first method is going to be called a initialize quest method. And we're actually going to go over to our quest base and make a public virtual void initialize quest. And we're going to go back to our quest kill, and instead of public void initialize quest, we're going to do public override void initialize quest. And we're going to call the base initial, well, I didn't call it initialize. We're going to, instead of initial quest, initialize quest. There we go. And then base initialize quest. And the reason why we're doing a initialize quest virtual void in here is because in the future we're going to have some functionality in here that all quests will have, but for now we're just going to leave it blank, and we're going to be putting the specific initialize quest stuff in here. And now the second method you'll need for this kill quest is a private void, and we're going to call this enemy death. And this was what we're going to call every time an enemy dies. And we're going to be passing through a character, or not, sorry, enemy profile, and just call this slain enemy. So whenever this gets called, this is the enemy that's going to be slain, and what are we gonna do with it? I just realized one little error. So instead of having the delegate in the base enemy, we don't want to do that here because there's gonna be a lot of them. And so we're gonna take this, and we're gonna go to our game manager. Let's go to our game manager. And the reason why we don't want this delegate on the base enemy class is because there's gonna be so many enemies. That means that there's gonna be so many delegates, and it's not gonna work, basically. So we're gonna go to our game manager, where there's only one game manager, and we're going to copy paste the on enemy death callback here, and so that way there's always only going to be one on enemy death callback. So let's go back over to our base enemy, and let's delete this. And obviously we're going to get an error because it's like, hey, there's no more on enemy death callback anymore. And to simply remedy this, we're going to say game manager dot instance dot and it should be fine with that. And we're gonna do the exact same thing and copy this, paste this over here, and it should be fine. So now that we've done that, we can go back over to our quest kill, and we can call this on enemy death delegate. We're going to basically be adding this method to the delegate, and to do that, we're going to be going to our game manager .instance .on enemy death callback. We're going to do plus equals enemy death, and just like that, we've added the enemy death to the delegate, and so whenever an enemy dies, this method is going to be called. And so this is where we're going to update the quest and whatnot. Alright, so before we can even update the current amount, the required amount still isn't set yet. We do set the required amount here, but we need to set it for every element in the required amount array, because we have multiple objectives. So don't think of this as just like one thing. This can be, you can have like 10 different enemies you need to kill, and to kill multiples of that enemy. So what we're going to do is, when we initialize this quest, is we're going to do a for loop for int I equals 0, I is less than the objectives dot length I plus plus, and we're simply going to set the required amount I equal to the required, oh no, not that, equal to, oh, first we need to do the objectives I, and then the required amount. Alright, so we've set the required amount, and now the next thing we need to do is that we need to update the current amount if the enemy that we killed is the correct enemy. So we're just going to do another for loop. For int I equals 0, I is less than the objectives dot length I plus plus. And then we're going to check if the slain enemy is the same enemy as the objectives I dot required enemy. Oh, not equals, equals. There we go. And so if this enemy is the same enemy that we need to kill, then we can increase the current amount I by 1. Plus plus means you increase it by 1. Alright, so we now can kill an enemy, and we can see if it's the same enemy that we need, and if it is, then we increase the amount by 1. However, once we get to the desired amount, let's say we kill all the enemies we need to kill, it doesn't really do anything, so let's see what we can do about that. Alright, so the next thing we need to do is check if this quest is complete. So let's go over to our quest base, and we're going to be creating a new method and calling this a public void, and call this evaluate. And we're just going to see if the current amount and the required amount are the same, or if the current amount is more than the required amount. And if it is, then this quest is done. But it has to be true for all of the elements in the objectives array. So we'll just do a for loop and say for, and say int I equals 0, I is less than the required amount dot length. We're going to do I plus plus, and then we're going to say if the current amount I is less than the required amount I then we are going to break out of this for loop. Actually, let's just return out of it. So we're going to return out of the for loop, which means that if any of the current amounts in the array is less than the required amount, then we're just going to get out of this method. We don't want to do anything more. But if it makes it to the end, that means that we've completed the quest. So let's just do a debug.log, and we'll just say quest is completed. So now all we have to do is go back to our kill quest, and at the end here, we are simply going to evaluate to check if this quest is complete every time we kill an enemy. Alright, so one last thing I forgot to do is I need to set the required amount, the length of the array. So because we never initialized the array, it doesn't know how big it's supposed to be. So we just say required amount is equal to new int object, or not object, objectives.length. And this basically initializes the array of the required amount, and we are setting the length to the objective's length. And then our current amount never got initialized, so in our initialized quest we can just say current amount, and we're going to say current amount is equal to new int required amount dot length, because the length of the current amount is going to just be the same length as the required amount, because there's going to be, the same amount of objectives. So one last thing we can do is that we never initialize the quest anywhere within our game. So basically we never accepted the quest. So in our test script, we're just going to add a really quick thing that will initialize the quest. Obviously you'd want like an NPC to do this, but we don't, it's not going to be the scope for this episode. I'll do that later on. So we're going to say quest base, and we just call this quest, and on the start we're going to initialize the quest. And this is why I wanted the initialize quest in the quest base, because then I can just call quest base and initialize the quest. And because kill quest or quest kill derives from quest base, I can just throw that in there and it'll initialize the quest for us. And so let's go to our test script. If you don't have test script, just create one. And it's going to want a quest here, and we just have one kill quest. Let's rename this real quick. Kill the slimes. Alright, so let's go over to our kill the slimes, and we need to kill 8 slimes, but that's a little much, so let's just kill 2 slimes. And we need to put the slime in, and then we need to create some slimes. So let's just create some slimes over here. And alright, let's see if it works. Alright, so let's test this out, and let's just run through this real quick. I have kill the slimes, and I need to kill 2 slimes. And if I kill 2 slimes, a message should pop up in my console saying quest complete. So let's start the game. And I set these slimes' health to 50 because originally they were at 100 and that was a little bit too much for me. So I hit it 5 times and we killed 1. And if I kill this one, we get a quest is completed. So there you go. So let's just make this a little bit more interesting. Let's say instead of just slimes, let's create a new enemy type. Just show you how easy this is. Enemy profile. We'll call this big slime, I guess. Maybe not big slime. Just call this. We'll call this wolf. It's not going to be a wolf, but you know, you just have to use your imagination. And we'll copy this, put it somewhere else, like over here, I guess. And instead of a slime, we probably don't have a lot to work with, but that would not do. Oh well, it's gonna be a slime still, but it's gonna be a wolf. Pretend it's a wolf, and we're gonna drag in the wolf enemy profile onto the enemy profile here in the base enemy script, and we'll just call this wolf. You don't have to rename it, just for my sake. And let's move it over here, and let's get this big one out of the way. Okay. And so now let's go over to our quest and let's create a new objective. So to create an objective, I just increase this size by 1. And instead of a slime, we are going to want a wolf. And we're going to want 2 of them too. So let's see if this works. And the quest complete should appear once we kill all of them. So we can't just kill 2 anymore, we have to kill all 4 of these guys. And just like that, we've killed all of them and the quest is completed. So there you can see, you can just have like a bunch of different enemies, and let's say you can be as many as you want. You can have like 10 of them, 20 of them, and they would probably have to be different enemy types. It wouldn't make sense to need to kill 2 slimes twice, because then you just do 4. So I'm pretty sure that it would just if you try to kill slimes like twice like this, if you just kill them twice, it's gonna fill out both of them, and it's just not gonna make any sense. So make sure that you don't duplicate these. You're not gonna get an error or anything like that. It's just redundant. And so stick around. That's gonna be it for this episode. I'll have more features in the future. We're gonna have a quest log. We're gonna have things like NPCs where you can initialize a quest, and then we're gonna have quest turn-ins. And then we're going to have a bunch of different types of quests too, not just killing things. We're going to collect items. We'll need to go to different areas to complete the quest. We'll maybe have to talk to an NPC to complete a quest. So that way you'll be led from one point to another more naturally. And then also we'll have a tracker, like when you kill an enemy, a pop-up will appear saying you killed 1 out of 3 slimes, something like that. And maybe we'll have like side quests too, and we'll have a lot of other stuff. So stick around, and thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time. And one last thing is that if you're getting an error with the enemies, whenever you kill them, an error pops up. I'll show you real quick, just for, because I just noticed that this happens. If we kill an enemy, we'll get an error saying like this coroutine couldn't be called because the object is not active. This is a little strange, but you just have to say if game object active self. If it's not active, then we just return. So then we never call the coroutine. And so it seems that it gets called right before it, or like while it's not active, which is really strange. But if you just add this line of code, you won't get an error anymore. And with that, I'll see you guys next time. I'd like to thank my Patreons Van Helen, Seymour, Mars, Black Fox, Pale Blue Dot, Emerson, and Polybius. Thanks for being my Patreon. If you want to be become one of my Patreons, you can go to patreon.com/devbird. Obviously, you don't have to, but every little bit helps. And thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you guys next time.